Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive, this time into the world of art and money.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
It is a huge topic, and we've got a really interesting mix of sources this time around.
We do.
Academic chapters, historical accounts, we even have some exhibition catalogs.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything, and we're going to be tracing how these financial forces have influenced art, from the Renaissance workshops of Italy all the way to today's, wild global art market.
Yeah, and it's a longer and deeper connection than I think most people would assume at first glance, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready to get some assumptions challenged?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to get my assumptions challenged.
That's right.
So let's start in Renaissance Italy with that classic Masaccio fresco, the tribute money. And we're not going to do like the art history one-on-one,
Or,
Yeah.
no, we can skip the perspective and chiaroscuro for now.
Forget all that stuff. Let's get into the money.
Yeah, art historian Estelle Alma-Murray points out that this painting, it might actually reflect a really practical thing happening at the time Florentine tax reform.
Wait, really? So this masterpiece about Jesus and his disciples is actually low-key about taxes?
Yeah, Florence was like completely overhauling their tax system right as this painting was being made.
Yeah.
They were moving away from what they saw as this really unfair forced loan system.
Interesting.
And this new system, it let the city, actually pay artists like Masaccio for their work, including those frescoes in the Brancacci Chapel where this painting is.
Oh, wow. So Masaccio might have been making a statement about fairness, even the role of artists in this new system.
It's very possible.
I love how art can reflect these real-world issues,
Absolutely.
But it still feels like today, we often think of these Renaissance artists as these divinely inspired figures creating, masterpieces for the sake of beauty.
Right. This idea of the artist's, divine gift, it emerges really strongly during the Renaissance. But it's kind of a myth that hides how central money has always been to art. Patronage commissions the art market. Right. It's all driven by economics.
It all comes back to the money, doesn't it?
It really does.
So to talk about this myth, we have to talk about Francesco Dettini.
Yeah.
This 14th century merchant.
Oh, yeah, Dettini.
He was a real character.
He's such a fascinating case study.
Yeah.
He commissioned art for religious merit, but also traded art, just like any other commodity.
Really?
Like, his life is just this perfect example of that interplay between money, art, and social responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, and he was notorious for, micromanaging his artists, even getting into, payment disputes.
Oh, yeah.
The painter Niccolo Guerini, he actually walked off a job because he and Dettini couldn't agree on a price.
He did, yeah. It's like an art dealing reality show.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. But it shows that art wasn't always this, romantic vision of a solitary genius.
Right.
Working alone.
Artists and patrons have been butting heads forever, about money, about creative control. And
yeah,
Dettini's just a really colorful example of that.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Ongoing power struggle.
So Dettini was a bit of a control freak.
A little bit, yeah.
But he also left behind the Seppo, this huge charitable foundation funded by his wealth.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a complex guy.
Yeah.
But his story shows how intertwined money, art, and social impact can be.
Right.
And that complexity, it only increases as we move into later periods.
Okay.
Like, for example, think about Australian Aboriginal art.
Great.
Laura Fisher's research, she shows how government funding initially intended for cultural revival actually ended up transforming Aboriginal art into this multi-million-dollar global market.
Wow. So something intended to help preserve a culture actually ended up creating this whole new market dynamic.
It did.
But that obviously brought its own set of new issues with it, too.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right.
The market brought global attention and financial success to Aboriginal artists, but it also raised all these questions about, cultural ownership and authenticity and the influence of outside forces.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even with good intentions, adding money into the mix, it can have unexpected consequences.
Yeah, definitely.
And then there's pop art.
Right.
A movement that really seemed to challenge these, traditional notions of what art was supposed to be.
Yes.
Peter Stupples argues that artists like Andy Warhol, they basically deliberately brought money into the conversation about art.
Right.
They weren't afraid to, confront its influence head on.
Yeah, Warhol in particular, I mean, he used these images of mass-produced goods, celebrity culture,
Right.
to make people question the relationship between art and consumerism and value. Like, he really challenged this idea of the artist as this detached, unworldly figure.
It was a provocation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He was like saying, look, money is part of this world. It's shaping art, whether we like it or not, so let's talk about it. So then where is the line between artistic expression and just smart business?
Yeah.
Is that line even relevant anymore?
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
And they're ones that still resonate today, especially when we look at, the modern art market.
Okay.
But before we jump into that,
Okay.
I think it's important to kind of take a step back and think about how the very nature of money itself has evolved
Okay.
alongside art.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because we don't often think about that.
No, we do.
You know, like money is just paper and metal,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the meaning that we give it that gives it power.
Exactly. And that meaning has shifted over time.
Right.
Right. We've gone from tangible coins to these complex financial instruments that barely even exist physically anymore.
Right.
And this shift, it's had a really profound impact on the art world.
Okay.
For example, cultural theorist Max Haven,
Yeah.
he argues that, contemporary capitalism is really marked by this dematerialization of money into these digital symbols.
So you're saying our increasingly digital financial system is shaping what we value in art?
He's playing a huge role. Yeah. I mean, think about it. This shift has made it so much easier to move vast sums of money around the globe.
Right.
And that's helped fuel the growth of the global art market.
Right.
And driven up prices for certain artists in a way that, most people can't even dream of affording.
Right.
So it makes you wonder, is it the object itself we're valuing? Is it the artist's skill, the idea behind the work, or just its potential as like a financial asset, you know?
Yeah, it's a tough question, especially when art is so often seen as a status symbol, like a way for the wealthy to just show off.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of this tension that art historian Leonie Schmidt describes.
Yeah.
The conflict between an artist's desire for creative autonomy
Right.
and the pressures of the market.
Yeah, and this idea of a gift economy in art,
Okay.
it actually really resonates with what we saw with Dattini. And even back in those Renaissance workshops, there's always been this push and pull between that pure creative drive and the very real need to make a living.
Right.
Schmidt's just highlighting how that tension plays out in our modern world,
So artists are expected to create this meaningful, challenging work.
Right.
But they're also pressured to produce work that sells, that appeals to collectors, that fits into market trends.
Right.
Yeah, it feels like walking a tightrope,
It's a really delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
And, some artists, they manage to achieve both critical acclaim and financial success. But for many, it's this constant struggle
Right.
to make those two things work together.
And I imagine that tension is even greater for artists who are working outside the mainstream,
Yes.
who are challenging conventions and pushing boundaries.
Absolutely. I mean, it's often those artists working on the margins outside those established systems, who are creating the most innovative, thought-provoking work.
Right.
But they're also the ones that are the most vulnerable when it comes to money.
Right, because they might have to juggle multiple jobs, rely on grants, maybe even go into debt.
Exactly.
Just to sustain their practice.
To support their work.
It makes you realize that, artistic freedom, it often comes with a price tag.
It does.
And that the art world, despite this glamorous image that we have of it,
right,
it can be a really tough place to actually make a living.
It can.
Especially if you're not already part of that, elite.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the role of public funding and arts education becomes so important.
Okay.
It can provide that safety net,
Yeah.
For artists
Right.
to allow them to experiment and take risks and develop their craft without always having to worry about selling.
Right. It's about creating space for artistic exploration.
Exactly.
To thrive.
Yes.
Even if it doesn't lead to these immediate financial rewards.
Yeah, and it's about cultivating a public that appreciates and supports art for its own sake, not just as a commodity.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that actually brings us to a question that I think we need to consider as we think about the future of art.
Okay.
In this world increasingly shaped by technology and globalization.
All right. What's the question?
So how do we balance the economic realities of the art world
Yeah.
with the need to support artistic expression, experimentation, and diversity?
Right.
How do we ensure that art remains a vital part of society?
Yeah.
A source of inspiration, provocation, critical thinking, even as it gets increasingly entangled with, global finance and commerce.
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
And I don't think there are any easy answers.
Yeah.
But it's a question we have to keep asking if we want to create a world where art can really thrive.
I agree completely. And this is where Mark Stocker's chapter
Yes.
on New Zealand's first national coinage,
Oh, yeah.
minted between 1933 and 1940.
Fascinating stuff.
This becomes so relevant.
It does.
He reminds us that even these everyday objects, you know, they can be filled with this cultural meaning and tell these stories about who we are and what we value.
Exactly like those New Zealand coins we were talking about. They weren't just pieces of metal. They were symbols of national identity.
Yeah.
They reflected the country's history, its natural environment, even its social anxieties at the time.
Right. So it makes you think, what are the coins of our time?
Yeah.
You know, what everyday objects, technologies, or systems really reflect our values and our aspirations.
It's a good question.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess it could be anything. Our smartphones, our social media platforms, the brands we're loyal to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these seemingly ordinary things, they're actually powerful symbols shaping our identities.
And they're also deeply intertwined with money.
They are.
With systems of production, consumption, global trade.
Absolutely.
It's like everything is connected. Art, money, technology, culture.
It's all a web.
It's all this big web, and it's within that web that we need to find ways to support artistic expression, to foster creativity, and to make sure that art stays this vital force.
Yes.
For social commentary, critical thinking, and yes, even, you know, beauty and wonder.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's about finding that balance.
Right.
Between the market forces shaping the art world and this human need for creativity connection, meaning...
Yeah, and that balance is constantly shifting.
It is.
You know?
I think by understanding the historical context and the economic forces at play and all the different perspectives of artists and collectors and critics, we can start to navigate this landscape and appreciate all the ways art and money, you know, intersect and enrich our lives.
It's interesting to think about how our relationship with art is changing even in the digital age.
Oh, yeah.
Like with the rise of social media, it feels like everyone's an artist now.
Yeah.
Or at least everyone has the tools to create and share.
Right.
When you think about that.
The internet and digital technologies, they've made it possible for more people to create art than ever before.
Right.
I mean, anyone with a smartphone can take pictures, edit videos, create digital art, and share it with the world.
And it's led to this, like, incredible explosion of creativity.
It has.
Like, there's so much amazing art being made.
Yes.
And shared online, often completely outside the traditional art world, you know, of galleries and museums.
It's challenging our very definition of art.
It is.
Like, what is art in the age of Instagram and TikTok?
Right.
Who gets to decide what's valuable or meaningful?
Yeah, it feels like those old hierarchies are really breaking down.
They are.
The critics, the curators, the collectors.
Right.
These traditional gatekeepers of the art world.
Yeah.
They don't have the same power that they used to.
No, they don't. And that creates both opportunities and challenges for artists.
Yeah.
On the one hand, it's easier than ever to reach a global audience.
Right.
Connect with other artists and build a following online.
Yeah. But on the other hand, it must be so hard to stand out from the crowd.
It is.
In that flood of digital content.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it makes you think about the value of art in the digital age. You know?
Yeah.
If everything can be so easily copied and shared, does that make it less valuable?
Right.
Or does it create new forms of value?
I think it creates new forms of value.
Okay.
Yeah, think about those communities that form around art online.
Yeah.
You know, fan art, memes, remix culture.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of value, but it's still meaningful.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a value that's often tied to engagement, participation, shared experiences.
Right.
It's not just about the art itself.
Exactly.
But about the connections it creates.
Yes.
The conversations it starts.
Right.
The emotions it evokes.
Right. Brings us back to the gift economy.
There it is.
Yeah. The art world has always relied on these non-monetary forms of exchange.
Right.
You know, collaboration, mentorship, sharing resources. The simple act of creating and sharing art because you love it.
And I think those forms of exchange, they're even more important in this digital age.
Yes.
As artists try to navigate this new landscape of creation and distribution and value.
Absolutely. It's about artists supporting each other, building community, ensuring that art remains vital to our lives.
Yes.
Even as the world keeps changing around us.
That's a powerful message, and I think that's a great place to end this part of our deep dive.
It is, yeah. Let's continue this exploration in the next part. You know, while we're thinking about these, like, new forms of value emerging online,
Yeah.
it's worth circling back to the modern art market.
Okay.
Remember that tension we were talking about?
Yeah.
Between artistic freedom and the pressures of the market?
Oh, wait, yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah, let's dive a little deeper.
So in our sources, we've got Rebecca Hamid and Ivan George. Yeah. These two contemporary artists who are trying to like navigate this system.
Yeah.
So what makes their stories stand out?
Well, their experiences, they highlight how the art market is shaped by these global forces,
Okay.
often in ways that are kind of hidden from view.
Okay, so for example, Ian Robertson writes about tax havens and free ports becoming these like new centers for contemporary art.
Right.
And I know the term tax haven gets thrown around a lot.
It does.
But can you remind me what it actually means?
Yeah, basically tax havens are countries or regions with very low taxes and relaxed financial regulations.
Right. Okay, so how does that connect to the art world?
Well, this is where the world of high finance really starts to intersect with the art market.
Okay.
So think about it. Tax havens, they offer secrecy and ways to potentially avoid paying taxes in your home country.
Right.
So for super wealthy collectors, art becomes this way to park their money.
Yeah.
While also maybe increasing its value over time.
Right, so it's like a win-win for them.
Yeah, it's a win-win for them, but it can really inflate the market
Right.
in ways that make it impossible for regular people to, even participate.
Right, like it prices most people out.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like a hidden playground for the ultra-rich using art as their chips.
In a way, yeah, and this connects to James Henry's research.
Okay.
He reveals this just staggering amount of untaxed wealth
Wow.
that's driving demand for high-priced art.
Yeah,
We're talking trillions of dollars flowing through these offshore havens.
trillions with a T.
Trillions with a T, yeah.
That's mind-blowing.
It is.
It makes you realize just how much money is like circulating in the art world
Right.
and how it's connected to these like global systems of wealth and inequality.
Absolutely. It's led to what some people are calling the financialization of art.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does that mean, the financialization of art?
Basically, it means that art is increasingly being seen as just a financial asset, like an investment.
Okay.
It's traded like stocks or bonds,
Interesting.
with its value going up and down based on market trends.
Right. So it's not just about appreciating the art for art's sake anymore.
It's not.
It's about its potential to make money.
Exactly. And a good example of this is Damien Hirst.
Okay.
His work with the diamond skulls and the formaldehyde sharks.
Right.
It often feels more about spectacle and generating headlines, driving up prices,
Yeah, it's like he's turned himself into a brand.
Yeah.
Almost blurring the lines between artist and business mogul.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely gets people talking.
It does.
It raises those questions again,
Right.
What role does spectacle and celebrity and, of course, money
Yeah.
play in the art world today?
It all feels so complex, especially for, artists just starting out.
Right.
Makes you think about the value of art outside this whole market system.
Yes.
What about the role of art in education, for example?
That's a great point. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit
All right.
and consider the value of art outside the market, especially in education.
Okay.
This is where Leonie Schmidt's chapter becomes really relevant.
Okay.
She highlights this tension
Yeah.
between what we expect of artists and how we actually support them.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So society expects artists to be these autonomous creators, these free-thinking individuals pushing boundaries.
Right.
But then we often undervalue their social contribution and their work.
It's like we want them to magically exist outside of economics.
Right.
But that's just not realistic.
It's not, and it often forces artists into what Schmidt calls a gift economy,
Okay.
where they rely on bartering and volunteer work and other non-monetary exchanges just to keep their practice going.
It's a system built on passion,
It is.
collaboration,
Yeah.
a deep belief in the value of art, even when that value isn't reflected in a paycheck.
It's true, and it actually connects back to the theories of Marcel Mauss,
Okay.
this French anthropologist who studied gift exchange and social bonds.
Okay, so how does Mauss fit into all of this?
Well, Mauss, he argued that gift-giving, even in its seemingly altruistic forms,
Yeah.
it creates this web of social obligations and relationships. It's a way of building community and solidifying connections.
Interesting.
He wasn't specifically talking about art,
Right.
but his ideas apply really well to this idea of a gift economy in the art world.
So even in the art world where we might think creativity should be this pure thing,
Right.
free from all of this, there's this underlying system of exchange and obligation.
There is Absolutely. It challenges that romanticized idea of the artist as this solitary genius,
Right.
working in isolation.
Right.
In reality, artists are always part of a network.
Yeah.
They rely on others for support, feedback, inspiration.
Right. It takes a village.
It really does.
So even without like the big money of the art market,
Yeah.
there's this whole vibrant system of value creation happening
There is.
in the art world.
Yes.
It's about more than just dollars and cents.
It is.
It's about community shared passion.
Right.
This belief in the power of art to make our lives better.
Absolutely.
But speaking of dollars and cents,
Yeah.
how do we reconcile these different ways of valuing art?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
It leads us back to the one we posed earlier. How do we balance those economic realities of the art world with the need to support artistic experimentation and diversity?
Right.
How do we make sure that art stays important to society?
Right.
You know, a source of inspiration, provocation, critical thinking,
Right.
even as it becomes increasingly entangled with, you know, global finance and commerce.
It's a question without easy answers,
It is.
but it feels important to like grapple with,
Yeah.
especially as the world and the art world within it
Right.
continues to change.
I agree. It's a conversation that needs to involve everyone,
Right.
you know, artists, collectors, critics, educators, and the public.
Yeah.
And as we continue that conversation, I think it's helpful to remember that art in all its forms.
Yeah.
It has the power to challenge us, inspire us, and help us see the world in new ways.
Well said. And with that in mind, I think it's time to move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Are you ready to explore the impact of digital technologies on the art world?
I'm ready. Let's dive in.
We were just talking about how, like, the art world is changing, you know, in this digital age.
Yeah.
It feels like the internet and social media, they've turned everyone into an artist.
It's true that digital technology has democratized art creation like we've never seen before.
Right.
I mean, anyone with a smartphone can create and share their work.
Right. And that's led to, like, this explosion of creativity online.
Yes.
You know, we see amazing art being made and shared outside of those, like, traditional spaces.
Right.
The galleries, the museums.
It's just challenging our very definition of art, you know?
It is, what is art in the age of Instagram and TikTok?
Right.
Who decides what's valuable?
Exactly.
It feels like the old hierarchies are, like, breaking down.
They are.
The critics, the
Yeah.
curators,
Yeah.
the collectors,
Yeah.
these traditional gatekeepers of the art world,
Right.
they don't hold the same power that they used to.
They don't. And this creates both opportunities and challenges for artists.
Right.
On the one hand, it's easier than ever to reach a global audience, connect with other artists, and build a following online.
Yeah. But it must be so hard to stand out from the crowd
It is.
in that flood of content,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. It makes you think about the value of art in this digital age.
It does.
If everything can be reproduced and shared so easily,
Right.
does that devalue it, or does it create new forms of value?
Right. I think it's creating new forms of value.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Think about the communities that form around online art,
Right.
the fan art memes remix culture.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of value, but it's still meaningful.
It is. And it's a value that's often tied to engagement,
Yes.
participation, shared experiences.
Exactly.
It's not just about the object itself.
It's not.
It's about the connections it creates.
Yes.
The conversations it starts.
Right.
The emotions it evokes.
Right. It brings us back to the gift economy.
It always comes back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah, the art world has always relied on these non-monetary forms of exchange,
Right.
collaboration, mentorship, sharing resources,
Right.
creating and sharing art just because you love to do it.
Right. And those forms of exchange, I think they're even more important in this digital age.
Yes.
You know, as artists try to navigate this landscape
Yeah.
of creation and distribution and how value is created and determined.
Absolutely. It's about artists supporting each other, building community, ensuring that art remains vital to our lives,
Yes.
even as the world keeps changing around us.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to sum up, you know, what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
The relationship between art and money. It's complicated.
Yeah, it is.
But at the end of the day, art is about so much more than money.
It is.
It's about expression.
It's about connection. It's about our human need to create meaning.
And that's a value that can't be measured
It can't.
in dollars and cents.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been another incredible deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for guiding us through all of this. It's been really enlightening.
The pleasure was all mine.
And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep creating.